So, we've just heard about the problems with the quality of the apps and the lack of evidence for app treatment. Thank you for that, Anna and Marco. I will continue to give you some aspects of the implementation of EHealth and EHealth. And I will also talk a bit about different populations with urinary incontinence. It may differ the role of EHealth and EHealth in different populations. And as Anna also pointed out, the use of EHealth and EHealth, it gave quite a lot of possibilities to collect data. You can get enormous amount of data from these studies. And I give you two examples of different apps. You've heard of urine control, and I'll tell you something about the iDry app. That was the first app with published results. And then something about the TET app, which is the one that we have developed within the research group where I'm the research leader. And I'll report very briefly some results from an RCT and an implementation study. So this is what you're going to hear. And this is a very recent report. During 2015, the WHO did a global survey of the use of EHealth. And this report is from the European data from this survey. And they talk about that it's a challenge for every country to deliver high quality, effective and safe care at an affordable cost. And maybe EHealth and EHealth may contribute to reach this goal of universal health coverage. So this report is very much about the use of EHealth in different countries. And we just heard that there are a huge number of apps, but what about quality, safety and reliability? And what about usability, functionality and meaningfulness? This report emphasizes the fact that they recommend the national health authorities to take the responsibility for evaluating and regulating EHealth. It's only in 23% of the European states right now that you have such an entity responsible for this. Well, I would like to talk a bit about the role of EHealth in different populations. And as we all know, urinary incontinence among women is very common. In fact, about a quarter of all adult women have some sort or some grade of incontinence. But we also know that it's only a part of these women that actually seek care. And that differs a bit between different countries, but approximately 1/4 or 1/3 seek care for the problem. And they do it primarily in primary care. And of those coming to primary care, a small part are referred to specialist care. That also differs in different countries. In my country, Sweden, it's only about 10-15% of those that goes to primary care that go further to specialist care. And there is also a fourth square, I would say, of super specialized care, but I don't show this here. But the role of EHealth might differ a lot between these populations. I mean, we have this huge square with the population of women with urinary incontinence. Maybe it would be good for them to have EHealth applications for information and self-management. And maybe primary care and specialist care could use EHealth applications for information, for motivation, for possibility to set reminders, and also for some assessment and for communication between patients, doctors, physiotherapists, nurses. Then, two examples of collecting data. This was actually the first app for urinary incontinence with published results in a scientific journal, the Journal of Urology, 2015. And it reports, this app was created by a company, and it does not include a real treatment program, but it's document symptoms of urinary incontinence, and it also document improvements. And all the user data that is created within this app are collected automatically and sent anonymously to the development team service, so you get a huge amount of data. And what happened with this app? Well, during the first 19 months, there were about 12,000 downloads, And of these that downloaded the app, about 870 entered data. And you can see that half of them only used it for a day, and only 3% used the app for more than 1 month and entered new data. This was used predominantly by men, and the most common reason was after prosthetic surgery and prosthetic problems. Even though only 3% used it for more than 1 month, it was possible to get some results. And that was that the short-term users reduced the pad use according to their self-reporting, and that bladder training positively correlated with a reduction in pad use and leakage amount. So this was an example where you collected data anonymously. Then I give you an example from our own research within the e-continence project, which is a project at Umeå University. And the aim of this project is to develop, to evaluate, and to implement treatment programs for urinary incontinence. We have done an internet program, we have evaluated it short-term, long-term, we have evaluated the cost effectiveness and made qualitative interviews, and these are published data. But now I'm going to talk about the app which we have developed. And this is the app TET. It's a quite it's an app that contains different parts. It is intended for women with stress urinary incontinence, and it has an information part, information on urinary incontinence, on the pelvic floor, and there is a part about lifestyle advices, evidence-based lifestyle advices, and then we have exercises, 6 basics and 6 advanced, and you have graphic support for each contraction, and you can get descriptions of how to do, and if you have different difficulties to identify the correct muscles, you get some tips, some advices, sorry. And there is also a possibility to set reminders, and you get some statistics. We did a randomized control trial. We wanted to investigate the situation in this large square, in the population of women with stress urinary incontinence. So we recruited women with stress urinary incontinence at least once a week through our website, eContinence, and they filled in a lot of questionnaires and leakage diaries and so on. And then we randomized them either to a group that got the app immediately or to a group that got the app after follow-up. So it was the control group was a postponed treatment group. And we had one of our primary outcomes was ICQ-SF. And you can see, I don't know if you're familiar with the ICQ-SF, but at the start they had 11.1 points on this score. And that means that more than 95% of the women had a moderate or severe leakage, and the median number of leakages each day was 3, so it was quite severe leakage. And after 3 months of treatment with the app, they didn't have any contact at all with the research team or with the doctor or with physiotherapy. And when we compared the outcome, we found that there was a highly significant decrease in the app group, and it was significantly different from the control group. We also had other measures, of course, and the other primary outcome showed the same. That was a quality of life outcome. Actually, this paper was published last Friday in Urology and Urodynamics. So if you want to read more, you can find it reference here. So with this randomized controlled trial, we demonstrated the efficacy for symptom severity in a randomized controlled study. And because we saw that it was effective, and then we released the app for free in May 2015 in Sweden. Because we were now wondering, well, we have demonstrated the efficacy, but what about the effectiveness? What happens when this app will be used totally free in the general population? We will still have an effect. We didn't know that. So therefore, we decided to conduct an implementation study, and I'm going to report some results from this. I can also say that if you have an Android, you can find the app at the Google Play. If you search for TET or TOT or incontinence, and then you can see the questionnaire which we have incorporated. When you download the app, you get the questionnaire, some questions about age, where you live, your educational level, and ICQ score. And then if you continue to use this app, you will have another questionnaire in 3 months. If you stop to use it, you'll never see it again, and you don't have to answer the questionnaire either. But I will report some data from the first 6 months of this implementation study. So during the first 6 months, we had 2,006 questionnaires. And what we found when we analyzed these users? Well, they were younger than in the RCT, and 2/3 of the one, they did not have any incontinence at all. Maybe they used the app preventively. 2/3 had incontinence of some degree, but the incontinence was overall less severe than in the RCTs, with a mean ICQ-SF of 8.7. And of the 223 persons, that is 14% of the total population that answered the questionnaire initially, 260 had urinary leakage at baseline. And we analyzed the difference between the ICQ-SF at inclusion with that at follow-up and compared it with the RCT. So what did we find? Well, in the RCT, as I showed you before, the mean decrease of this primary outcome was 3.2, and among those who used it freely after release, there was a decrease of 2.63. So we concluded from these first data of the implementation study that the app was effective even in an unselected population of Swedish women, among these who continued with it. Some take-home messages that, well, if you work with apps and internet and things like that, you have EHealth provide new possibilities to collect data. You can collect data in different ways. You can collect it automatically. You can collect it via questionnaires, or you can use web questionnaires, whatever. And there is a very interesting recent publication in urology and urodynamics about the reliability of electronic ISIC formulas, questionnaires. They were equivalent with paper versions. So you may use them electronically. But of course, you have to be very aware of the user security and the validity of data and so on. And then the other one is that treatment of stress urinary incontinence with the support of the app was effective in an unselected Swedish population. Questions?
Donna Bliss from the U.S. again. Actually, that was sort of my question, is sort of the ethical piece of data collection and the regulation. Was it easy to get that permission? I'm assuming it's all anonymous. In your study, maybe not anonymous, but when it goes out into the public to maintain that data collection, you know, the whole uproar that came out over the Pokemon app where they were, you know, collecting all this information from children and people. It just sent people in the U.S. crazy. And, you know, that is a concern of people, all the privacy.
Yeah, it's a very important concern. And we have, of course, permission from the Ethical Review Board to make these studies. But this implementation study, which I was talking about, we don't collect any data from the app. It's just that when they download the app, there is a questionnaire, and this questionnaire is linked to the unique ID of the app that is created when you get the app from App Store or Google Play, And it's possible to link a follow-up questionnaire if you have the same app after 3 months. But we can never trace the user because this unique ED is made within the app. It's not made within the telephone. So we can't trace the users back. So I think therefore it's why, but I don't know how you manage that if you collect data. I don't think if it's possible to collect data with follow-up data from like you are doing. Could you comment on that?
So in our study, we our developers were already had developed some health tools in the psychology. So they have this secure system in which we collect the log data and all the other data. However, if you would do it later on in the implementation phase, after the 12 months of now everybody wrote an informed consent, and this is all very secure. But I don't know how it will be if we would like to implement it and then collect the log data.
I don't know either, actually. But with this questionnaire, it worked.
We have asked our patients if they start using the app because we give them the app. It's for free. When we start therapy, and say this is the app and this is the program. When we can even create, especially for them, as a program, and they can collect it themselves on their own app. But 8 of 10 ask me, are these data for you, for me, or are they coming somewhere else? Because if there is one kind of data they don't want to be somewhere in the air, it's not a healthy thing.
I think there is a lack of regulation within this area because it's so new, and I think there will come lots of regulations from the EU, from the WHO, and so on, because you see if you download apps yourself, you answer questionnaires in almost every app, and you never know what happens with it, and that's going to be regulated, I think.
They don't want to share.
So Marika, you don't see their data, they only see it, and they can show you, but you don't gather any data from them?
No, I don't gather. The new app, they can confirm every exercise they do. So if they come back to me, and if they have their exercises programmed, and I say, I see you in 6 weeks.
I think we have time for a last question. Yes.
Yes.
Can discuss why it's working this way. It's on their end, not on mine.
Okay.
Montse Spunya, Uroganya Canois from Barcelona. I have 2 questions. First question is talking about regulation, not about security. That could be considered as a medical device. Did your ethical committee ask something about that? Because it's from practical point of view, it's like if you sell cones or other things there.
Yes, it is registered as a medical device at our entity for regulation of EHealth, and that's the CE mark. So
Okay.
it's regulated as a medical device, and it has, the study has...
So your national agency has to approve
Yeah.
first as a
Yes.
medical device, and then
Yeah.
you have your ethical committee
Yes,
approval.
that's right.
That's right. And the other point is how you control the overtreatment. I mean, women who are very obsessive and want to do, I don't know how many exercises. Do you have any advice or anything to control that? Because it's not a serious danger for health, but it's a danger for avoiding dysfunction or other things. So how you control the overtreatment?
Well, we don't control anything. We leave it to the women themselves. They take care. They self-manage their
But the
urinary
program
incontinence.
advise women that you are doing too much exercises or something, or
No,
you have levels?
We have 12 different levels, and we advise them to stay at one level until they know how to do, and that they shall not go too fast, and that it's important to relax between every contraction. And it's, well, you can have a look at it yourself if you download it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.